Hi everybody and welcome to product management. Remember, this is a revision class, an online tutorial. It is not a discussion on the module content. So without further ado, I'm going to start the presentation. Kavishan, I see that you have posted a question to say that the link is not live on eLearn. Genevieve is busy typing a response for you. If you can just confirm with us as soon as she has given you a response on whether it is active or not. I'm going to give the presentation about a couple of minutes before we actually start, just to give others students the opportunity to get online as well. All right, let's just give it a couple of minutes. Okay. It would appear as if we don't have that many people participating tonight, which is no problem at all, as this session is being recorded and students will be able to access it at their leisure. Right. So without further ado, let's continue. Right. You would have noticed for the second semester, you would have reached or you would have received a tutorial letter, which clearly indicates to you that there is a new edition of the prescribed. I'd like to know from you whether you had any difficulty obtaining either one of the two editions, and let me just confirm that for you. The old edition of the prescribed book is Trot 2012, Innovation Management and New Product Development, the fifth edition by Prentice Hall. Or you need to obtain the new edition of the prescribed book, Trot 2017, Innovation Management and New Product Development, the sixth edition by Pearson. Okay, cool. All right, Kavishan, I see that you have the new edition. Right. You will see that I make reference to the old edition, but regardless, you will see in the tutorial letter, there's a page reference guide, or actually a chapter reference guide, which clearly indicates the sections and the chapters which you need to focus on. The only exception to that is the packaging that is available on eLearn. Kavishan, can you just confirm that it is indeed available to you on eLearn? While you type there, I'll be able to continue. Right. So the most important thing is that you need to refer to the tutorial letter with the chapter reference guide. Right. Now, I'd like to know from you what your approach is. Cool, thanks. I'd like to know what your approach is to the actual studying of product management. And I'm going to refer to the ABC model. You'll see what that means in a little while. I'd like to know from you, how do you study? All right. Now, the purpose of this presentation is interactive of nature. That does not mean that I expect from you at this particular point in time to know exactly how to answer these questions. It is mainly to get a feel from you how you prepare and what you are going to write in an exam should you be faced with this particular question that we are doing tonight. You will see that I'm not going to go into too much detail, although the slides that I present to you is given with as many marks and marking guidelines to make it applicable to your preparation. Okay, let's continue. Right. Just as I've mentioned to you before, this isn't a module content presentation, but mainly an examination preparation presentation. Now, just briefly, what I'm going to cover is just the parts of this particular module. You'll see in your learner guide, you've got 3 parts to the module. You've got new product development, and secondly, innovation management, and thirdly, turning technology into business. It is important for you to know that no part or section is more important than another. You will see when you are faced with an exam paper that it is extremely balanced across all parts and across all chapters. And at this point in time, I'd like to make it crystal clear to you to not spot questions. You will see that the questions are subdivided. Let's say question 1.1 will come from chapter 11, and question 1.2 will come out of chapter 2 or 3. So there is no way that you can leave parts of a question or parts of the textbook or parts of the module out in order to get through the work quicker. I'm going to run into some hot water. So please be aware that you need to prepare well in time to cover as much work as you possibly can. Now, quickly, just as while I have someone online, I'd like to have some assignment feedback from you. I'd like to know, how did you answer your assignment? Did you experience any uncertainty with regard to what is to be written? Was the case study clear enough and sufficient? And the reason for this particular question is that we need to have a better idea of how you experience these assignments. This is how we, as your lecturers and IMM team and learner support team, can make the product that we offer better for you. So if you can, send me some assignment feedback while the presentation is going on. Alternatively, if you wish, there is an opportunity for you to send some feedback to the learner support team as well as the IMM management, should you feel that you need to get some clarity on the assignment. I'm just going to pause the presentation for you here. Okay, I've got a question. There was uncertainty due to the textbook confusion. I can fully understand that. Did you get the tutorial letter before you got the assignment or only after you got the assignment? Because that would have made things a little clearer for you. Okay, the tutorial letter arrived after the assignment had to be handed in. I fully grasped that there would be some uncertainty. I would also have imagined that there would be some leeway with regard to the marks that have been awarded. But technically speaking, there shouldn't have been that much confusion with regard to the differences in the textbook, because the majority of the information in your 6th edition textbook, the new one, is extremely similar than in the previous edition, the 5th edition. So there shouldn't have been too much confusion with regard to that, except for the packaging question. That I fully grasp would have been problematic for you. The content from the learner guide is different, is in different chapters in the textbook. Okay, that's why the tutorial letter is of such importance. Okay, so make sure that what I would recommend is that you take your tutorial letter and you take your learner guide. Now remember, your learner guide is based on the previous edition. Okay, so what I would recommend you do is pencil in your learner guide, based on the tutorial letter that is given to you, the new sections in the prescribed book. Would that make sense to you? Then you work through the learner guide with the penciled in correct sections as indicated in your tutorial letter and your new prescribed book. That is what we usually suggest. Cool, Kavesh, brilliant. And that is what I would recommend that you do. Pencil it in, and then your learner guide would make sense together with your new prescribed book. Okay. Should any other students feel to provide us with additional assignment feedback, please do so that we can take your concerns and your questions and your suggestions into consideration in order for us to make this an even more interesting module than it is. Okay. Now, I'd like to know from you, how do you study product marketing? Or product management rather. If you look at this prescribed book, it's a lot of work to get through, especially for exam preparation. Now, I know that this is extremely daunting, working through a textbook like this, and even more so when you look at the learner guide, which seems to be not as self-explanatory as it should be. I'd like to know from you, what is your approach when you study this? Kavesh, if you can, while you're the only student online, make use of this opportunity to let me know, how do you study? Okay. While you're typing, I'd like to know from the other students, when they look at this recording, how do you internalize the material? And why is this so important? Remember, because this is a module that is quite intense, you need to make the work your own. And the way to do this is to spend time with it. Now, just spending time with a book doesn't mean much. You need to internalize the information that is in here. And how you do this is by using as many senses as you possibly can. Now, based on my frame of reference and based on the way that I did my studies when I was at varsity, excuse me, I had to read through the textbook, but that was step one. And secondly, I had to then summarize. Now, this sounds so airy-fairy when people say, oh, you need to summarize, but you need to make or find a way that makes sense to you. Okay, some people use lots of summaries and just generally just reduce the amount of work. Other people use brain charts. You need to be able to spend time with this module and with the work that makes sense to you, and then you need to study from that. And this is where a lot of students fall flat. They don't spend enough time with a module in order to prepare for the studies. Just to work through the textbook and the learner guide is not going to help you prepare. Okay, so generally sit and summarize. I'm not entirely sure when the paper is being written, but I would suggest that you actually get to summarizing the work as soon as possible. And this leads me to the next slide. And a lot of students fall into the trap of, okay, I'm just going to study this of the textbook just to have a general idea, and then I'm going to use previous papers to prepare from. And this is where I'd like to caution you and say, hang on, do not use previous exam papers to study. This is not the focus of the module. The focus of the module is product management. You need to understand and fully grasp the content thereof. Now, this is a good tool to assist you, and this is what the basis of tonight's presentation is all about. It is also based on previous exam questions, but it does not mean that those questions that we cover here tonight is going to be verbatim what's going to be in your exam paper. There might or might not be incidences where there are questions rather that are similar. But that does not mean that you need to study from these papers and questions alone in order to prepare sufficiently for this module, just as a word of caution. Now, you will see that tonight I'm going to refer to Bloom's taxonomy. If you want to Google that, you're more than welcome to. But what it boils down to is that questions in general are being set based on this Bloom's taxonomy. And this is with regard to higher order thinking. And you will probably ask, okay, but why do we need to know this? It is just to have a broader idea of how these questions are set up in order for you to know what is expected from you. And this is where I'd like you to fully understand that when we look at Bloom's taxonomy, we look at the do words. Okay, take a highlighter when you work through question papers, when you do your actual question paper, and highlight the do word. That will clearly indicate to you what is expected from you. Second part is that you look at the what in the question. And this is based on the theory that you need to have a full grasp of. And this is where the do word tells you what is expected of you. Excuse me. And the what part, the theory part, is where you need to tell us what you've studied, what your grasp is. That sort of thing. So what I'd like you to make sure you do is to highlight both the do and the what word in the question. Okay. Excuse me. Okay. Provision, I see your question with regard to the use of exam papers. You get them without a memorandum, and these tutorial videos are usually of good service to you as well in that regard. Sorry, just hang on. My apologies. All right, and this is where I think, Kavesh, tonight you have full-on one-on-one attention with regard to what these questions are or could be, as well as what the memorandum of these questions are. And this is where you've got the guidelines, you've got the full marking guidelines, what is expected of you, so you're getting the full spiel of it. So good on you. For those that are watching later, you'll still get the full benefit, but you're missing the interactive bit of this preparation. Okay. Now, without further ado, I'm going to go into what Bloom's taxonomy is all about. Just going to go through it briefly, just for you to get a full idea of what this is. All right. You will see that Bloom's taxonomy is based on a pyramid model, and the majority of the information is at the bottom. Okay, and the higher you go in the model, you'll see that the more analytical and more creative the actual higher order thinking becomes. All right, you'll see it right up at the bottom. We start with remembering information. This is where your studies comes in. And this is where you can actually start with your preparation. Where can you remember, or how much can you remember of the information? The second bit is where we actually start a test. And you'll see that a lot of the do words in your questions that you see here tonight is based on understanding. And you'll see the words that we look for or that we use in the setting of these questions is the classification, description, discussion, explanation, identification, recognition, support, translation, selection, that sort of thing. So thirdly, we're looking at the application of the knowledge to new situations. And that is where you would probably get to do this in a work environment, where you've taken all this knowledge that you've gained through your learning, through your exams, and now you have to apply what is being taught to you here in a work situation. Now, the fourth part of Bloom's taxonomy, which we use in our question papers, which you will see, is further higher up in the thinking order. But it's with regard to the drawing of connections between ideas. And this is where we ask you to apply what is being used in theory to a particular situation given to you in a case study, or where you need to provide examples to state the application of the theory into a realistic situation, or a marketing situation, or a product management situation. The two top parts of Bloom's taxonomy model is the evaluation and creation. And this is not necessarily what we use in our examination for this particular module, but it is very good to understand in a broader perspective where this could be used. So I'm just going to leave it there. Most important is for you to look at the words being used for understanding purposes, as well as those being used for analysis purposes. All right. And we'll take it from there. And you'll see that in the presentation, I flip backwards and forwards for you to understand where we are and what this means. Excuse me. Right. So without further ado, let's look at a couple of these questions. Okay. Question 1. Discuss. Now remember, bell should be going off at this particular point in time. This is a do word, highlight it. It says discuss any 5 techniques that Heineken, now this would be given to you in a case study, so don't stress or worry about it now, that Heineken could have used in consumer testing of Sol in the South African market. Consider your options carefully to match the product. You need to describe the particular technique and discuss how you will use each one of them in the chosen 5 techniques. Remember that only 5 relevant techniques are to be discussed. If more than 5 are to be discussed, only the first 5 will be marked. Now, Kavishan, over to you. As this is interactive of nature, I'm going to give you a couple of minutes. I'd like to have your interactive feedback. What are you going to write when you get faced with a question like this? Remember, your do word is discuss, so you can fully grasp what that is within Bloom's taxonomy. Okay? And it is the consumer testing techniques. What are you going to write? Not required to give a definition of consumer testing. I want to know which techniques are you going to discuss. And remember, it says describe, not define. It says describe. Just give me a list of what you're going to write. It's just a short, just shorten it for the sake of typing. Just while we are waiting for some feedback, it is extremely important for you to read your questions, because just to jump in and to think, okay, I'm just going to answer this or just give that, you're giving your marks away. You will see that we highlight certain words, and it is to your advantage to actually just focus on those, what we highlight, but just be very clear about what is it that we're actually looking for when we question or give you a particular question. For the sake of not losing marks. You might have seen this question in previous papers. You might have seen it in previous assignments or even current assignments. I'm going to continue for the sake of time. Let's just have a quick look at what is expected from you and how the marks are to be awarded. Now remember, the key word here is to discuss. All right. 10 marks, you need to discuss 5 techniques for consumer testing. Right. I'm going to go into too much detail, seeing as you will have this particular presentation. Okay. Right. You will see that there's a list of quite a number of techniques. You can choose any 5. Only 5 will be marked. Now, what I've given to you here is only the theory, okay, because the application thereof is entirely up to you. First of all, it's concept tests, and this is usually where you have a number of target customers. Okay, no worries, Kavish. Seriously, no stress. And this is with regard to where a new product could be tested with particular customers or groups. You can use test centers, but not necessarily used for this particular case study, which is based on a beer. All tests, product use tests, trade shows, monadic tests, paired comparisons, in-home placement tests, and test panel. Now, you will see that the marks being awarded is 1 mark for the description. Remember, it said you need to describe and discuss. Is to be awarded for the actual description of the technique, and then 1 mark for the actual application. Okay, so any 5 with a clear description of what that technique will entail, and then how you think it can be applied in this particular case study. Now, for you, Kavish, and for all the other students watching this particular online tutorial, when you have to apply to a case study or to an example, be creative. We are all consumers every day, and when you have to think about product management, put yourself in the shoes of a consumer of a particular product, or even somebody in a marketing department developing that product. Okay, it makes it so much easier for you to come up with creative ideas. So just as a mental note. So this is what is being expected from you when you are faced with the consumer testing of a product. Okay. The next question that I'm going to cover tonight is to identify and explain the 5 dimensions of an organization's knowledge base. Note that this is a purely theoretical question, as it does not request from you to apply the theory to a given case study, or that you need to provide any information based on your own experience. Right, Kavish, it's over now to you. Identify and explain the 5 dimensions of an organization's knowledge base. How are you going to answer this question? 10 marks. Kavish, Although it might make sense to you, you will not be able to obtain marks for a diagram. Diagrams are only allowed for marking if it has been requested from you or if it is being used as part of your learning preparation. The question clearly says identify and explain. So no, you will not be able to get marks for that. What are your ideas on this question? Yes. Okay. You can, yes. It is so. So you can, when you look at answering this question, remember you need to provide not only one dimension, but you need to provide 5, okay, for the organization's knowledge base. All right. So you need to make sure that you look at, yes, brilliant, individual, administration, technology, asset, brilliant, projects, all of those. You've got it. Well done. When we look at what needs to be included under each, this is what we're looking for. Okay. You will see how the marks get allocated for this question. Yes. Agreed. The way that you're considering this question, brilliant. Yes. So you need to look at individual assets, technological assets, administration assets, external assets, as well as projects. Okay. So those 5. And you need to discuss all of them for 2 marks under each heading. Okay, well done. The next question that I have for us this evening is explain. Remember Bloom's taxonomy. Go and have a look at what is required from you. It is most likely to assist you with creation of understanding. Okay, so if you want to have a look, let me just page back to my Bloom's taxonomy. And you will see that the word explain is clearly given to you there. So it is with regard to, we need to see what you understand with regard to a particular aspect. What is this aspect? It says explain what is meant by the R&D continuum for 3 marks and discuss the 4 activities that are placed on this continuum as part of the R&D operation. So in other words, the operations that make up research and development for 12 marks. Now, here's another part of the question. Provide practical examples relevant to the given case study to support your answer. Don't worry, you will get the case study. In this case, it was the Heineken Sol case study to support the actual question. So what I need to know from you is how are you going to approach this question? Kaveshan, over to you. Students, if you are watching this at a later stage, take some time to fully understand what are you going to do when you approach this question before you continue to the answer. Kaveshan, over to you. I have another student online, Shana. Welcome. If you'd like to have all your material with you, this is an interactive online examination preparation. We're going through some questions and you are assisting us with your approach to these questions and what you plan to answer when you are faced with these questions. It is not you don't have to have all your ducks in a row at this particular point in time, but it's for us to get a proper understanding of what you know and how you will approach questions like this. So the question is, explain what is meant by the R&D continuum for 3 marks. and you need to discuss the 4 activities that are placed on this continuum as part of the R&D operations. Textbook, always, always. Remember, Kavesh, the learner guide is there to guide you. Okay. The actual question papers get set from the prescribed book. Okay. Notice that. Learner guide is there to guide you through the material, but the questions get set from the prescribed book. So when you have to give a definition, give it. Okay, Vision, I've got your response. Okay. Right, you say knowledge and concepts, basic research, R&D continuum, applied research, development technical service, and physical product. Okay. Now, when you look at the R&D continuum, let's just have a look at the answers. Right. You need to, first of all, tell me what is R&D continuum. Okay, so first of all, we need to say that research will mean the systematic approach to the discovery of new knowledge and can be based on the use of new science and the use of old science to produce a new product. Okay? Industrial R&D can be viewed as a continuum with scientific knowledge and concepts at one end. Remember, when we have a continuum, it is one end versus another. So you need to say that we have the knowledge and concepts at one end and physical product at another. And this is what the continuum looks like. Okay, this is also in your textbook. It is not required, Kavesh. Remember, it is not required for you to draw a diagram. You're not going to get extra marks for it. Okay, so you just say what is on the continuum. The operational part that you need to discuss, it says there are 4 activities. Now, these 4 activities are basic research, applied research, development, and technical service. Okay. No, it would not be. No linear diagram, no diagram is going to give you any marks. Okay, unless the question actually says, support your answer by means of a diagram. Okay, unless the question tells you to draw a diagram, you're not going to get extra marks for it. Not at all. Okay, the question says, explain. All right, that's why when I started the presentation with regard to the questions, Bloom's taxonomy is so important because it tells you exactly what is required from you. All right. Now let's have a look at what the operational part of are the R&D, or the operations that make up R&D consist of, with the 4 activities. And we look at the basic research, applied research, development, and technical service. Now, just as a reminder, the question also stated that you needed to provide practical examples based on the case study. Okay. Now, you need to provide me with theory for each of these aspects or activities mentioned, and you need to provide me with practical application based on what the case study is given. And you need to be creative. No need to be factual or to think all serious. Can be fun. Okay. Now, the case study was with regard to a new Mexican beer under the auspices of Heineken, which is being produced or being released in South Africa. All right. Now, you need to provide me with 2 marks of theory and a 3rd mark on practical application. All right. I'm not going to go through too much detail. You have this. But like I said to you, be creative in what you give as the practical application. You don't need to be all serious about it. Okay. We all cool? Brilliant. The next question that I have for you this evening is discuss in detail, very, very important, these 7 characteristics of packaging. Okay, now remember the packaging chapter is part of, for those that are using the new prescribed book, it is part of the e-learn. Make sure that you have this. You will get a question out of packaging. I can guarantee this to you. Okay, you will get a question from there. Make sure that you get that chapter. Okay, discuss in detail the 7 characteristics of packaging that need to be carefully managed by the product manager. In your answer, provide constant reference to Sol beer. This is based on the case study of Heineken again, and how these characteristics apply to the packaging of beer. Note, very important, 21 marks are to be awarded to the discussion of the 7 characteristics, and 4 marks for a comprehensive practical application. All right. Kavesh, over to you and Shana, if she is active. What are you going to include in your answer? Yeah. I see you have posted a question. Would this PowerPoint presentation be available for download? I am sure that it is either part of this online tutorial. Alternatively, I can request from Genevieve that it is made available to you on the eLearn site, but she will be able to confirm with you whether it is available in some other format. Okay, I'm going to leave that to Genevieve to confirm. All right, Kavesh, based on the characteristics of packaging, what are you going to include in this particular question? Now, also put yourself in the frame of mind of beer. Okay. Brilliant. Fantastic. You've got it. Okay. Brilliant. And that is what you need to include. But remember, it's for 25 marks. So you need to provide me with enough theory as well as practical application in order to obtain the maximum amount of marks. Okay. What do you have to include? It's the dispensing, the storage, stability, handling, opening, receiving, after use, and disposal. All right. And we need to have clear theoretical explanation of what needed to be included here. Now look at the amount of marks that get awarded for each aspect to be discussed. So that's why you need to have a grasp of the theory. And it is 3 marks for each theoretical aspect to be discussed and 1 mark for application. So remember when you study this to provide enough theory. When we look at dispensing, for example, it's with regard to the measuring of a product in the right quantities. Excuse me. It's also with regard to access to examples that you could include outside of the given case study, just for clarity's sake, is if you maybe make use of vanish the pink jar with for its Vanish O2 power cleaning goodies that you use for laundry. It's got a scoop inside. For those that have children and those who have babies or have younger siblings, milk, the tinned containers of milk also have a scoop in it. It is in order to dispense the product easily. Now, with regard to beer, it can be easily drunk directly from the bottle, or it can be poured into a glass. However, the bottle needs to be easily held. The case study mentions, this particular case, you can clearly see that the bottle is grabbable. Okay, so that makes it easy to dispense the product from. The second part is storage. Now remember, it's with regard to the with storage is actually related to the actual after purchase use of the product. The intended area or the use of consumption with regard to its packaging is considered such as glass containers for products that are frequently used in the bathroom. Think about that. A lot or often we get goods that are to be used in an area which doesn't make sense. So in other words, like the bathroom situation here, given to you as an example. Why would you have a glass container that is used frequently in a bathroom? Okay, stacking and storage with regard to not only its on-shelf appearance, but also in a home environment or in an actual consumer use environment. Think about things like that. Now, remember that beer, now going back to the case study, this is the application part, needs to be refrigerated because it needs to be drunk cold. This needs to be indicated on its packaging. And its packaging needs to be of such that it can be stored easily. Now, given in the case study, you will be able to see whether it can be stored easily or not, and then make given suggestions to Heineken. Stability is with regard to the shelf life of a particular product. You need to mention it. Okay. You need to be able to give some other examples, should it be necessary, and should you be able to, in order to improve the shelf life of a product. And then you need to relate your discussion back to the given case study. Now, you will see in the case study that was given that beer is usually sold in darker bottles, but this particular beer is sold in a see-through glass container, which is contrary to what is happening in the beer industry. And you need to determine whether, based on this particular product and its stability and the storage thereof, whether this is actually a good idea for Heineken to continue in the see-through clear bottle, in the transparent bottle, or not. Excuse me. Handling is the next aspect, and it is with regard to the actual dealing and handling of the product. You will see that, or if you use your own frame of reference, how is milk handled? Some bottles have an ear to it, which you can, or a handle to it, which you can hold. But the sachets of milk is a disaster. How do you handle that? So you can mention that in your example as well. You can say that with regard to the case study, when you look at the case study, there is a very nice cardboard case which the beer is packaged in, which makes it easy to handle and to carry. It's 6 beers at once. But the case study would clearly say that to you, and it is up to you to clearly draw what is given to you in the case study to the theory. This is where the application part of the question comes in. It is extremely critical for you to be able to master that. Opening and resealing of a product, you can mention your own examples to further facilitate the understanding thereof, but you obviously know what the resealing and opening of a product is. You will see in the case study that is given that the Sol beer requires that you use a bottle opener, where a large number of South African beers are actually a twist top, so you can open it without the use of a bottle opener. That is something that you need to be able to see and consider when you're discussing this particular part of the theory. After use and secondary use, think about tins that you've purchased, let's say cereal. I've been guilty of it, I'm sure you have as well, or your family, where you think, oh, this is such a fantastic container. I will buy this particular product because I like the container. Think about that from your own experience when you combine the theory to the practical part of this aspect. when you look at the case study that is given to you, you will see that the Sol logo from Heineken is embossed in the glass bottle, which might make it good for secondary use or for decor, but isn't necessarily the primary purpose of this particular container. And lastly, we look at disposal. Now, disposal is getting rid of the packaging. Remember, this is a packaging question, not the product. So the disposal of the actual packaging, is it done in a responsible way or not? There's more and more focus on the eco-awareness of packaging as well as the biodegradability thereof. And you need to be able to link that aspect to the theory given. Okay. As I mentioned to you before, you will get a question on packaging, either one of the characteristics of packaging or the functions of packaging. Okay, there is a tip for you for those who are actually online now or going through this stage. Question 5 is identify and discuss all the sources that a company such as Cadbury's could have used to generate new business ideas, as given to you or provided to you by Trot 2012. Now, don't worry about a particular reference to a prescribed book. It is just a way of academic writing. So don't be too concerned with regard to that reference. You will be able to answer a question like this should it make reference to a previous edition. Okay, identify and discuss all the sources Cadbury's could have used to generate new business opportunities as provided by Trot. Provide, here's a practical application, provide realistic, related, creative marketing explanations for each source. No need to be factual. And this is my way to tell you, go for it. Play with the theory and make it your own and tell me how you're going to apply this. Okay, Commission, over to you. How are you going to answer this particular question? Look at how the marks get allocated. It's 25 marks. So think about this. Shana, if you can hear me, you are free and more than welcome to participate in providing some idea of how you will approach this particular question. Okay, Kavesh, I see your response. This wasn't the assignment. And yes, what you have typed there for me is entirely correct. Now, based on that this wasn't the assignment, what have you taken from the way that you've answered it in an assignment and how it was marked for you? In other words, what I'm trying to get a grasp on is, should you get this question in an exam again, what have you learned from the assignment and the way that it was marked with regard to your approach to this question? Okay. Brilliant. Your approach is correct. Let's have a look at how it will be marked in the exam. Okay. You are correct. It is the existing products, competitors' products and reverse engineering. It is the technology, unexploited patents, customers and vendors, senior and top management, brainstorming and synergies, as well as individuals and existing products. That is entirely correct. And you give a short explanation of each, as well as a creative example to a given case study, should it be. In this case, it was based on Cadbury's, and it was with regard to new chocolate being introduced to the industry. And I'm not going to go into too much detail with regard to that, but what I will tell you is that your approach is correct. Short idea of the theory in your own words, as well as the application. And it has to be creative within the given case study, or if it was not related to a case study, aspects that are related to your framework. Think about that. Relax. So that is indeed correct. Existing products, products of reverse engineering, and you will see that is not equal parts for each related topic. And the simple reason is some parts to be discussed needs to be done in more detail because there is more theory to be covered under each heading. Okay. But you will see that you will get 1 mark for every application that you get under each. You will see there what is to be included. Right. And then the last question I have for you is, a variety of growth opportunities can be identified using the ANSOF directional policy matrix. Explain each one of the 4 product market combination options in the ANSOF directional policy matrix in detail for 15 marks. Now, you need to know that this question is it is either in an assignment or it is either in an exam. It is one of those two things. It's one of the questions that gets answered so often, or that gets asked rather, so often rather than not. So be prepared to maybe get this one in the exam. Kavesh, I see you have a question. Let me read it before we continue. If we hit a blank with the exact definition, would a close explanation be accepted? For sure, definitely. If it is closely related to the theory, if I can see, but you know what you are writing about, you will get the marks. And this is what we prefer. And this is where the internalization of the material is so important, because we don't want to see the textbook. We want to see how you interpret, how you understand the theory. And this is where the summaries, the working with it, the actual explaining it to yourself, the reading it again, explaining it to a friend, chatting about it. In other words, the internalization, that's where it is critical. Because then we can see that you have a full grasp of the material. Okay, let's get back to question 6. All right, Kavishan. A variety of growth opportunities can be identified rather, using Ansop's directional matrix. And you need to explain, go back to Bloom's taxonomy. You want to know exactly what needs to be given. Is it understanding? Is it application? What is it? Explain each one of the 4 product market combination options in this policy matrix in detail for 50. What are you going to do? Brilliant, you've got it. Ansop's matrix looks at the following question. Quite right. Looks at market penetration, product development, market development, and diversification. Quite correct. Now, you need to provide, can we draw the table as shown on your slide? No, it is not required. You can, but you're not going to get marks for it. And you know that anything that uses up time in the exam is crucial. So I would not draw pictures unless it is requested from you to do so. If you quickly want to draw it in the corner of your question paper so that you have clear or some better clarity, by all means go for it, but you're not going to get extra marks for it. Don't waste time hoping that you're going to get additional marks for diagram. Okay. Now the first aspect is market penetration using current products in the current market. Give me an example, Kavishan, of a current product in a current market that can be a growth opportunity in the market penetration strategy. The top of your head. Cold drink doing what? Let's say, for example, what can Coca-Cola do in their current market with a current product to boost growth? What can they do? I'm putting you a little under pressure, Commission. Sorry, not intentional. It is for you to think a little when it comes to how to outline. Re-engineer it, like Coke Light, I assume. No, it's a current product in a current market. Think a little deeper. You want to increase volume. What are you going to do? The key is in the marketing mix activities with focus on increasing volume. Remember marketing mix, the 4 P's. I can, okay, I'm going to throw you a lifeline. You can reduce the price, okay? You can have a special event that is lower the price. Yes, indeed. Lower the price to increase the volume. This is what they usually do. You can have some branding activities. You can have a major road show. You can have sponsorship of a developing cricket team. Same product, same market. New activations. Indeed. Well done. Right. Second aspect to be looked at under Ansop's directional policy matrix is market development. Now, this is where we have a current product in a new market. Okay, so this is a market that has not been exploited before. Now, what would you think can be done? You want to look at a new segment. You can use Coke if you want to. Alternatively, you can use a different product. Yes, indeed. Kavesh, you've got it. Let's take McDonald's, is what is suggested, entering the Indian market. Fully agree. They would need to look at the market needs and adjust their offering to suit that market. Fantastic. How about McDonald's looking at the vegan market? Now, there's a challenge. Not that I think they would. But yes, brilliant. Well done. You've got that. Next is product development. If you look at the diagram, product development is a new product in a current market. Kaveshan, what are you suggesting? Yes, Coke Light. Yes, a healthy alternative to Coca-Cola. Well done. The last aspect to be discussed under ANSOF's directional matrix is diversification. All right. Yes, it is used to increase market share. Fantastic. Well done. You can mention that in your discussion as well. All right, diversification, Kavesh. This is where you have a new product in a new market. You can mention forward or backward integration if you want to, with an example. Give me an example of diversification or forward or backward integration. Give me an example. Yes, fantastic. You've got it. Well done. Kavishan has said, if, as an example of diversification, Jeep moving into a clothing line. Okay. Also, you can look at forward and backward integration. This is usually where you have a retailer. Backward integration is where they go into manufacturing. You can give me an example there if you wish. Or forward integration is where a manufacturer goes into. Okay. Well done, Kavishan. Your examples are spot on. Good. Use them. Use this thought process and use your creativity when you answer questions. Okay. Now, in conclusion, Kavishan, before I hand over the entire microphone and online session to you for questions, let me just conclude this online session with you and all those other students watching this afterwards. First of all, get a good night's rest. I know I sound like your mother, but there is wisdom in it. Prepare as much as you can, but get enough rest the night before the exam paper. If you are frazzled, you're not going to remember, and mostly blanks occur. Don't not get enough sleep. Be on time for your exam. Always take a spare pen with you. All right, stationery usually that's out on us sometimes. So take a spare pen with you. The format of your question paper. 3 hours, 100 marks. You will get a case study and you will have 5 questions of which you need to complete 4. As I mentioned to you before, you need to be able to have enough coverage of the theory so that you can answer at least 4 of the 5 questions. As I mentioned to you, there is no way that you can leave out sections or that some sections or parts of the book or the prescribed material is more important than another. You need to make sure that you have full grasp and full understanding of all parts of it. Read your questions carefully. And this is what this online presentation tried to convey to you with the use of Bloom's taxonomy, with the highlighting of the do words and the theory words, that you know what is expected of you and why. What is it that they're looking for? Is it to apply? Is it to analyze? Is it to understand? Okay. So read your questions carefully. If, like we said this evening, if there is no request for a diagram, don't waste time drawing a diagram. If it is for your own quick understanding and you can do it with a pencil in the corner, go for it. But don't think that you're going to get additional marks because you've drawn a diagram. You will not. Okay. Manage your time. 3 hours sounds like a lot, but the questions are intense. So you need to look at the amount of marks and the time that you allocate to achieve those marks. Don't waste a half an hour on a 4-mark question. Don't. Use that for your 25-mark question. Breathe. It is not the end of the world. Read your questions carefully before you attempt to answer. Read before you answer the question so that you have clarity of mind on what it is that you're going to write. And good luck. My thoughts are with you. Should you have any questions at this particular point in time, ask away. Now's your opportunity. Kavesh, and I'm handing over the session to you. If there is anything that you would like, you or Shana would like to ask, go for it. I'm here. It's my pleasure, Kavesh. Fantastic. If there is anything that you need to have clarity on, please send Genevieve an email. She'll be able to convey it to me and I'll answer you as soon as I possibly can. If there is any uncertainty, anything, go for it. And that concludes our session of this evening. Good luck, and my thoughts are with you.